Now, this is interesting. So, I've been looking through all the newspaper archives, and obviously, I could spend more time on it. But I think I've actually done a good effort of looking through the newspapers. I just bought like a month subscription, but to be honest, I was doing other things, and I didn't end up using the entire month to actually on it researching. So I had to kind of do it. I had to do my month worth of research in about 3 days, but I think I did quite a good job, actually, to be honest, in the limited time. I found everything I was looking for. I was looking for, like, specific evidence, right, for my petitioning research. So I wanted some evidence and examples of all these council meetings and orders and people getting permission to petition under the Tumultuous Act. Got quite a lot of evidence of that. I got lots of examples of petition adverts in the newspapers, all the way from 1700s through 1800s and even some kind of modern ones. There aren't that many. People did them. I mean, like, I'd done it. I did one. I've done a few, actually. They are quite rare. They were more common as just normal kind of like writing text adverts. But later in the 20th century, they're a lot rarer. I mean, I would probably say that there was maybe like, one a month or something like that, or less. Probably one a month or less. People who actually put the petition in the newspaper and like with a form you could cut out and sign. Yeah, people did it. It was done, but it is quite rare. Not that many people did it, but they did do it. Like I say, probably once a month or less. Definitely in the 20th century less, but they're there. I've got quite, I've got probably 100 examples, right, through maybe I could have found some more if I'd have spent more time on there, but I got enough examples. Also, the further you go back, they didn't actually get it so you signed the form. What they had is that, it was the local newspapers. They said you could go, like they had them in a church or in the local shop or in a bookshop or in a town hall or at the court and they asked people, they told people the address where it was and they could go in and sign it. So they did that quite a lot. Found quite a lot of evidence of privileges. The main evidence that I've got is about the tumultuous assemblies and it's a definition of the riot and how the privileges of Parliament and petitioning applies to the law for offences, because it is privilege, it's privileged or it isn't. The thing is, there are privileges and we've got them when you're using them, and it actually comes down to whether it's private land or public, you see, because this is how it's actually completely compatible with the control of advertisements, right? Because you put advertisements in public, right? And the thing with the Luddites is that it was all to do with private businesses, private machinery, private companies, and private owned land, right? Not public. You see, the suffragettes, what the suffragettes had a grievance with the government over the law itself, right? Over women's voting. So they had no target, they didn't have like a private business or a private person or a private company or street lights or pavements or not even, a shoemaker or a builder or whatever. It was the actual Parliament and the government. Now, the thing, what the suffragettes were doing is they were pushing the law for actually the presentation of the petitions, because they managed to actually get the Tumultuous Petitioning Act provisions ignored, so they weren't enforcing them, right? So they ended up not bothering to have to get permission from the courts. If they did, they could get a court order to show that they were privileged, but they didn't bother. But what the suffragettes were really trying to do was that they wanted to write off the Tumultuous Act. They wanted to try, because there was some arguments whether or not that the 1688 Bill of Rights was an effectual implied repeal of the 1661 Act, right? So they were pushing the boundaries of, like, they'd managed to get half of the Act not enforced. But when they wanted to try and get like a large body of women into Parliament, right? Because that's their argument was with Parliament, because it was Parliament who decides whether or not they give them the vote, right? It wasn't like some factory owner, it wasn't like some shoemaker, it wasn't the street light, or whatever. It was actually Parliament, right? And they wanted to get in there in a large group assembly of women to protest. I think they wanted to protest inside Parliament. But because the police were enforcing the last bit of the Tumultuous Act, which says that you can't present a petition with more than a group of like 10 or 20 people, right? But they were managing to be allowed to assemble and collect the signatures and kind of protest in large groups without getting the court consent, which it said you needed in law, right? And to even collect the signatures and to actually have the petition existing in large numbers of signatures without permission. So they'd actually got, effectively, they were highly successful in what they were doing, right? But they didn't. They wanted to have the 1661 Act completely and utterly disregarded, so there weren't any provisions of it at all, right? Now, with the Luddites going back, right, the Luddites did petition Parliament, right, and to get the minimum wage lifted up. They weren't actually against technology. It was all about the money part of it. And I'm sure those 4 who got hung in York, it wasn't actually for smashing the machine. I think we need to clarify this, whether or not those 4 who got hung in York, it was for smashing machines or for a guy in Marsden who got a factory owner who got killed. Well, I think they killed him. I think supposedly, but mysteriously it was actually near Meltham Chap or Meltham Cop, where he actually died, which is quite unusual and strange. But anyway, right. So now the Luddites, right? They tried to petition Parliament, but they weren't actually focusing on. Well, after they'd done the petitions and tried, right, they were actually targeting the factory owners who they had grievance with, who were not giving them the wages, right, and their actual property. Now, this is the thing, right? The machine, I think they were claiming their privileges and rights in the petitioning, and then they were smashing machines up. So that's when the government made the actual specific law to say that, smashing machines up is a criminal offence and a crime, right? But this is the thing, right? That Riot Act, the very first Riot Act of Tumultuous Assemblies, which it comes after the 1661 Act, right? It only applies to private grievances and private land and private owned property. It doesn't apply to the commonality, the public in a public cause when they're in public, right? And that, if you think about it, right, offences in public or damage to public property, the taxpayer own it, or the government or the king or whatever. It's not privately owned. And this is like putting adverts up and being able to use paint, stickers, nails, attachments in public through the control of advertisements in modern law, because it's not damage, right? Because you've got the right to put the adverts up because we paid for it's public owned property, right? And all this about you can't use protections or privileges for personal debts, right, with private persons, but you can use protections to stop you from being prosecuted, right? It's like the police, although the thing with the police is the police do have a license. The police do chase people into their own private houses and kick their door downs and destroy private property, And that's the irony with the police. You see, the police are not chasing after a criminal and kicking down your door. Chasing after a criminal and kicking down the public, like public toilets, right? It's public property. You see, the irony with the police is this, right? They're not damaging a lamppost, the police, when they chase a criminal, usually, unless they crash when a police car's into it. The police usually don't damage any public property, usually, unless they're having some kind of chase. It's actually quite the opposite. When the police are going after criminals, they're actually destroying private and publicly owned property, doors, buildings of private houses, which is actually meant to be what the Riot Act doesn't protect us for in petitioning, but we are meant to be exempt when it's the commonality of the public against public owned property. I'm affixing adverts there, yet, they prosecuted Angela Ditchfield. So it's kind of like, it's the opposite. So it's meant to be that with the right to petition, anything publicly owned, right, you've got license to, attach a notice onto it, or even, fasten, fix, glue, attach, screw, paint, whatever, public owned property, because it's the taxpayers, and you don't have to pay to do that, because it's a particular right and we own it, whereas opposed to a private business has to pay for the privilege to have something advertised in public, right? Otherwise, because it's them. It's a private business that makes a crime when it puts adverts for profit up in public. And this is something the police really couldn't give two pence about, and really could not give a monkey's flying mother fuck about the law, right? They really could not give a fuck. Right? Oh, let the council enforce that, right? But the police rarely damage or break any publicly owned property, and most always, 99% of the time, if they're chasing a criminal, it's damage to your own private house and personal house, which is actually meant to be what the Tumultuous Petitioning Act and the Riot Act does not cover you for, right? Because it's not meant to be in the interests of the commonality of the public in a representation in public, to the public, and to Parliament when in and on the streets, right? Now this is when, you can look into this. I found evidence to support this basis completely and utterly, and even like a really, really good newspaper article about it, proper detailed legal explanation, which supports the Jacob Giles book that I got the legal basis, and the actual early riot law and act itself, right? And therefore, actually, when with the ULEZ cameras and in modern day with this whole stop the ULEZ thing, the thing when it comes to crime and criminality, right? The core basis of it is that the thing with the ULEZ cameras is that they're publicly owned, or they're not privately owned, and it's public on public land, okay? And it falls under the basis of the fact that, you can put an advertisement on a ULEZ camera, or paint an advertisement on a ULEZ camera, or screw a sign to it, or whatever, because it's going to be in public, right? In privilege, because it's not privately owned and it's not on private land. That's the basis which it comes under. But the main basis beyond that is the fact that it's not, once you take a cause to Parliament, even if you did break the law or do something illegal, it would be for Parliament to prosecute you or judge you, not the courts, not the magistrate or Crown Court or Common Pleas or whatever. It was not Common Pleas. I keep saying Common Pleas when I mean Petty Sessions, right? Whenever I say Common Pleas, I meant Petty Sessions. I get it's easily misled because it sounds like it's trivial when it's common, and pleas is guilty or not guilty. I meant Petty Sessions, not Common Pleas. I've mistakenly written Common Pleas on quite a few documents when I meant Petty Sessions, because Common Pleas is actually a civil claim, civil law at Westminster, right? But it makes it Common Pleas. It sounds like it's a strange thing because it's an old-fashioned thing, and it makes it sound like it's kind of like a magistrate's court as opposed to a serious indictment. Common plea, because they're asking you how you plead, right? So, but it's actually nothing to do with crime. It's to do with civil disputes, which is misleading. But anyway, so I mean the courts probably really don't like this. They hate it, and the hardest part is getting heard because it's they're not treating it as a group. They're not letting other people make representations, and the lawyers and barristers really aren't taught this. They don't know about it, and you only really come across having to do it if you get accused of doing something. So if people know about this, and want to get involved and try and help, it's hard for them to, unless, they've been prosecuted themselves. And then you're having to defend yourself, and it's not nice having to defend yourself. You want to be able to go into a court and do this law without when you're not under pressure, when you're not under a time limit, when you're not being threatened with jail or prison, when you just, got all your stuff together, got all the information, make sure everything gets said, get into a court, get a good judge who is, at least impartial, not biased, and so forth and so forth, and then you can get it sorted out. But, now, it takes money to go into courts and finding the right barristers or solicitors to represent you, particularly when it's all going off in London, and I've been researching this for a long, long time now, and it's taken... I could have started, doing it a lot earlier, and I could have come to these conclusions earlier. But, I was working at the time, most of the time, and doing a lot of on-site campaign stuff now, which is what all these Stop ULEZ people are doing. Myself, doing promoting of petitioning and investigating actually the things that the government are accused of doing wrong, the maladministration, the malpractices. Now, everyone else is kind of on with, in the field, so to say, out on site, going about promoting petitions and campaigns. I have been able to put more time into the law, although I didn't quite pick up as quick as I should have done. I learned quite a lot at the start, and a lot of it is just intuitive, and it's all been about finding things to support your intuition and finding things to support what the law says, because people don't believe the law or don't have faith in the law, or it might be old law, and that's the thing. It's to substantiate the basis, right? So now, right, why have I got this page up in front of me anyway, talking about secret societies, right? There's no definitive list of current active illegal secret societies. So the thing with the Luddites is this, right? There was a law put through because they were having secret meetings and secret societies. So the government made it so you're not allowed to have secret societies. You're not actually allowed to have secret groups. Now, it made me laugh because, the Privy Council of the King, in a way, they've got a secret oath, but it's not secret because you can obtain it, right? I think the newspapers have published it a few times. The Privy Council oath is one of the most peculiar, arcane, weird, magically orientated, strange, ritualistic enigmas. It's odd for someone to be the leader of the Protestant Christian religion and church to have such an oath, because I would say that, it's more like the scene out of, Kevin Costner, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with the, underneath the Sheriff of Nottingham's caves with the witch and the strange kind of rituals. It's getting towards that side of, it's definitely not... it's not what you call standard mainstream Christianity, you know what I mean? In fact, but it's not that, the Privy Council aren't secret. We know they exist, right? So you can't say it's a secret society. But this is the thing. They were saying that the Luddites and other groups can't have secret societies. Now, the Luddites were against the big factory owners. They weren't necessarily against technology. They were against getting paid equal for what they were doing, right? To not create all these Mark Zuckerbergs and Bill Gateses and Donald Trumps and Elon Musks, and Tim Cooks and all these huge monopolies who now are in control of most of the technology of the world and all our mobile phones, and now they're bringing in spyware, Trojans, consent to accept policies, taking over. If there was anything that the Luddites should have been more concerned about, is actually what's going on now with, and people have seen it, people have spied it, they've spotted it, they've saw, I can see what's going on now, but Tim Cook's like, no, we're just simplifying everything, it's not, I'm not making you use voice recognition on your Apple tablet because there are no buttons on there, not even any symbols that you could even recognize. There's 15 different arrows, but, if you don't use an Apple device, how do you know what the arrow means, because they all look pretty much the same. In fact, it means nothing to anyone who's never picked up a device before. It's not like it's written in English saying, left, right, up, down, stop, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it's like, we got 4 arrows, like, what the fuck do these arrows do, Tim? Right, well, I'm simplifying it, no, Tim, you're not simplifying it, how about this, Tim, right? Well, let's simplify $1 million, right, and just give it like, 1 0 behind it, then it's 10, right? That's simplifying things. Hey, let's simplify Tim Cook's bank account, $100 billion, that's too complicated. Why not just have it like, $1, right? Hey, Tim, I've simplified your bank account, right? It's like Bill Gates. Hey, let's make everyone allergic to red meat. Why don't we make these billionaires allergic to money? Some of Zuckerberg's turning up at Donald Trump's dinner. Going, hey, Donald, I'm with the big guys now. Look, I made $60 billion last year, Donald. Great. Matt, and you wasted people's time in your crap adverts that, waste people's time, they're not interested in, they spam up the screen, just causing hassle, all for your $1 billion profits or whatever. This is the thing. So, but anyway, so coming back to secret societies, so apparently they're illegal. So that means that, but the thing is, there are all these societies, but they're not secret. So it's like, hey, we're, building a railway track through, or where, we are the construction company, HS2 or whatever, or, and then you've got all these social media platforms, we're all kind of working together with the government. But it's not secret. No, it's not secret, right? It's actually, in fact, I think they've made petitioning into a secret society now, because the e-petitions committee have kind of like made it so you can't see who signed your own petition when you ask them to. You ask 10 people, or which ones of them sign, or not to ask them again, or else it might badger them, right? You can't see it, it won't tell you. And it's very difficult to see on the website. And I'm like, have they made e-petitions into a secret society? Because I don't even know who's signing my own petition now, so it must be secret from me, right? It's secret from me who signed my petition, Does it even tell you on the JSON file afterwards when you download it, but it doesn't tell me in the email, Well, I've got a body of 5 people signed to that petition, but I don't know who any of them are. So is it a secret society? Well, I know what the petition's called, but I don't know who are members of it, right? You could pull Parliament up on that. As e-petitions now have created secret societies, multiple secret groups, because no one knows who signed. When they used to publish the full names in the newspaper of all the people who'd signed or supported it, but, bye-bye Yellow Pages, bye-bye the phone book, we can't have everyone's addresses and phone numbers everywhere, I think this is what, you see, my definition now of what this kind of like, the whole policing thing and the whole army and the military, right? It's like, I thought earlier today, actually, and late last night, I was thinking, where are they going with this? And I'm like, okay, so what happens when there are no more countries to fight with, right? Let's say, let's say that NATO won, and let's say that, Tony Blair and all these people got all the digital ID, and China, and then, at the moment we're fighting Putin, right? And at the moment we're fighting, many of these Middle East places, right? But, right, so we've got, governments have got military, and they've got boats, and they've got army, and they've got tanks, and they're fighting, well, we're fighting Russia, right? We're fighting Putin, or, Putin's fighting Ukraine, or, all this Gaza nonsense in the Middle East, or whoever it is, right? They're our enemies, or we're fighting them, or Palestine, or whatever it is, whoever it is, right? Whichever side anyone's on. And I was just thinking, right, they've got all these armies. What the army's going to do if there aren't, if Putin was not at war with anyone, right, and even if Putin, let's, Donald Trump's, greatest dream, he wakes up one morning and gets a phone call from Putin, and he says, hey, how would you like to annex Russia to America? And then, Trump's like, whoa, I must be dreaming. You know, Putin wants to annex Russia to America. It's like my dream come true. Now can we throw Canada in as well? Yeah, why not? You know, and then say, oh well, might as well annex China now. Yeah, but under such point system, well, in for a penny, in for a dime. It's like, you know, so it's like, but if they did, right, have, if Trump annexed the world, right? Let's say Trump annexes the world to America, right? So therefore, there aren't any other armies. So therefore, what are their excuse going to be for manufacturing weapons and tanks and ammunition? There isn't really going to be an argument for it. But we know they would still do it. Why? Well, so they'll say, oh, there might be a threat from space, but, you know, well, Sputnik did quite well, didn't it? Or Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, you know, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, it's not exactly armed to the teeth, is it? You know, it's been out in the deepest, darkest depths of space, all alone. It's gone so farther than ever expected, and now it's so slowly, you know, it's lost its signal and going cuckoo, right? But it never necessarily got attacked or blown up. Is that evidence that might not need weapon systems out there in, you know, deep space, you know, because if they did, you know, surely, you know, it would have needed them, you know, it would have never got all those pictures and even made it that far, right? You know, it didn't exactly carry an assault cannon on it, did it? Well, maybe it did, I don't know, maybe it did. Let's have a look at the plans of Voyager. I don't know. I should know that question before I start talking about it. I've got a feeling that it wasn't armed to the teeth with... They had to turn the power off to preserve the camera, apparently. And then they had to turn the camera off to preserve the rest of the power for the rest of the things. So they were turning things off sequentially to reserve power, so it ain't got any weapons. So, right, you know, we sent them out into space, right? This is a test. Will, you know, if we go out into space like Voyager, will we need to go out there armed to the fucking teeth, right? You know, with the latest fucking Elon Musk's latest cutting edge fucking Optimus fucking laser? Well, apparently we didn't need it, you know, because, you know, if we didn't need it, maybe Voyager wouldn't have even fucking got past, you know, it wouldn't have got anywhere, right? But, you know, they didn't need it, right? So, well, I can't see the strong argument for that unless it is to... and it didn't crash... Notice it didn't crash into anything. It didn't crash into any planets. It didn't crash into getting hit by a meteor storm. Now, you might need the freaking laser. You might need the freaking laser to, you know, blast some meteors which are heading for you. But apparently it managed to evade them quite well, right? So, I mean... Does that not evidence that there isn't any emergency need for weapons if you go out into deep space, right? You know, as long as you can dodge things and maneuver, it's not like it was attacked from, you know, all sides in some kind of like, you know, fucking assault, right? So what are these excuses for all these weapons, you know, freaking lasers and all this bullshit, right? Now, this is my opinion, right? What I think is that if they're, you know, police, military, you know, we need more surveillance, more police, more cameras, you know, more facial recognition, blah, 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 you know, more military. But what happens if, you know, we annex the whole world and there isn't an other military force to necessitate a war, right? Well, this is a thing. My opinion is that then the enemy is going to be us, the public, between the police, the what you call authorities, and us. And it's not going to be about fighting Putin. It's not going to be about fighting, you know, Ukraine or Palestine or whatever, right? It's going to be about us and the authorities, which is going to be this growing police force, which has got surveillance, facial recognition, you know, or you chatted a girl up and she didn't quite appreciate the, you know, she didn't appreciate you, you know, putting a comment, even though she's trying to get as many followers and fans as possible, right? You know, she didn't appreciate that comment, so now you're going to get fined, right? Or, you know, your facial recognition, you're not allowed out of the house for 20 weeks or whatever. Or, you know, this is the thing. I'm certain that the way that they're going with, just look at their plan unfolding, right? This whole kind of like the direction they're going in with all these facial recognition and all these new laws for these new niche little offences, and, you know, don't look at me with your one eye, you know, don't look at me with one eye closed, with your, you know, don't look at me with your left eye open and your right eye closed, or, you know, whatever, you don't touch another person, you're not allowed to touch human beings, don't look at people's kids or whatever it is, right? And all these weird offences. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be like this authoritarian military regime against us. Now, no one wants that. But by the time that they've got all these, checkpoint Charlies in place, all this doot, scanning every single thing, phones, listening to every word, you're not going to be able to do anything without either getting a fine. I mean, they're even going to fine people kids for not registering to vote, right? And they're going to be bringing in fines like, you're breathing too quick, or, you didn't go out and walk enough on Saturday, or whatever it is. So this can only come to, right, either it's this authorities who are the ones, the observers, in the, new online surveillance units that they're putting in place versus the people. And that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the global world regime versus, obedient citizens, and you have to behave exactly as you're told in literally nearly every other thing, every single, there's going to be a law for everything, you're not allowed to pick up, you're not allowed to carry 2 shopping bags at once, or you're not allowed to run down a corridor while you're singing, or you can see them doing this, so that's the way it's going. Now, I can't see. It's going to be difficult now because they're already. Hey, guess what? Surprise! Now we're listening to all of you. Surprise, Trojan. It's like on Seagal Under Siege. When the girl comes out of the cake. Surprise. It's like, oh, we've got a surprise for you. What's that? Well, you consented, submitted, and accepted us on your phones, and now we already know all of the things about you because we already got it, and Bill Gates has got it all on his master drive and his mega station. Every single mobile phone conversation, we know who you like, who you don't like, and everything. So it's all over now. We just got to get it put through the law so we can arrest you all. This is the thing. It's done. This is the thing, Tony Blair, gotcha, get your digital ID now, you're even talking into it. Oh, damn, Tony, damn. Yes, he gotcha, Tony, doo-doo. Tony Blair, didn't see that coming, did you? Did you? They all got your little digital ID cards in your pockets now. Oh, too late. Tony Trojan. Oh, damn. Now he just needs to call it, your digital ID card, this is the thing, we can link it to the government and to your bank accounts and to your passport and to everything else, so we can just ban, block or whatever you when you don't, walk down the corridor and with 2 shopping bags when we say you're only allowed to walk down the corridor with 1 shopping bag or whatever, right? This is the thing. But this is the thing. Who's planning this? Who's planning this kind of thing that's happening, which many people, there's so many people now who have consented to agree that there's this thing happening, right? And the government are trying to kind of ignore it. We're not, we haven't planned this. Now, this is the thing when it comes to these secret societies, right? So, it's not secret. BlackRock Vanguard, whatever it is not secret, right? But they were not telling everyone. But people told us that, they're buying everything up and taking ownership of everything, right? And, some of them who use different company names and brands and so forth, so you don't know that it's owned by one company. That's kind of a little bit like a secret society, right? But when it comes to the Fabians and Tony Blair and this whole kind of hey, mechanisms of implementation, or even a military-style campaign, beyond leaders, it's that secret society, hey Charles, it's that secret society, a military-style campaign, beyond leaders with trillions. It's disposal. Well, what is this? What is it called? Oh, I can't tell you. It's secret. Oh, is that the secret society? No, I thought that's what it was. Well, it's a military-style campaign, right? And it's beyond leaders, and it's got trillions. It's disposal. Well, what's it called? Can you tell us, or is it secret? Well, it's, are they called the Fabians? Well, we can't say it's the night, the most honourable order of the Garter, because they're not secret, because we know that it's the honourable, Order of the Garter. It's not the Honourable Order of the Bath, because they're called the Bath, and it's not the Knights Bachelor because they're the Knights Bachelor, so that's secret. But, you know, I know Tony Blair and Keir Starmer are members of both those orders, and, you know, they're knocking around in other groups, you know, NATO, WHO, you know, the World Health Organization. Oh, who? No, it's called WHO. Oh, who? We don't know who. Well, is that a secret society if we don't know who? This is the thing. So it turns out that if they're... This is the basis of it, right? It turns out that if there was a secret society, and if they were planning this thing that we all know that we're planning, which is, it's not secret anymore, but, you know, well, the thing is, they're saying that it's not true, that they're not planning anything, that they're not trying to take over the world. So they're not admitting that to have a secret society, right, it has to kind of like, you know, sort of be, you know, what you know, this is the thing. If no one does exist, then how can it exist, right? You know, this is the thing. But all the persons have some kind of agenda or objective, right? So this is the thing. You know, how would you even define? I would be interested to know how it's defined in law, right? I think it's where persons have come to a consensual agreement that they're going to do something, but they will never admit it or tell anyone. Right? Well, isn't that what they're doing now? Isn't like everyone said, oh, just a minute, are you trying to take over the world with facial recognition and facial recognition and, you know, social points and, you know, all these, you know, police authorities against the planet, you know, against the citizens when there are no more wars to fight, you know, they're going to be fighting us, and every single breath, movement, word, gesture is all being observed and could commit an offence at any time and result in you being banned from leaving your house or seeing your friends or whatever. Is that what you're after? Because that doesn't sound like democracy to us. Sounds more like an authoritarian worldwide military-style regime, right? They're not happening to be planning that, are you, by any chance? Oh, no. We're not planning that. Are we, Anthony Linton Blair? Well, what's this mechanisms of implementation that you said? Well, if that's what you want, well, no, it's actually not what we want. It's the mechanism of implementation. What are you implementing, right? Well, facial recognition, digital ID, but why? You know, what's the objective with the digital ID? So we can regulate you all better and know absolutely everything that you're doing. Oh, it's for your own safety and good and for our benefit. Yes, but you blocked us from knowing what all your private companies are doing. They're not transparent. I can't even see you sign my own petition. You know, all this freedom of information seems to be going the other way at the moment, particularly in this big corporate entity area. You know, or anything that's trying to, you know, do some strong political power, you know, that has a say in what's going to happen, right? You know, we're not allowed to reject a petition, right? This is the thing. It's like, you know, it seems like as long as they're denying, no, there is no such society, you know, you're all just delusional, right? Well, isn't that the, you know, is the fact that they don't admit that it exists, the fact that they proves that it's secret and they don't want you to know about it. This is the thing. But who could you prove are members of this society? This is the thing, you know, other than saying that, you know, these, you know, is there a pattern forming here? You know, is there a pattern forming? You know, let's put an object out there, right? Hey, look. There's a pattern forming here, right? Are you trying to take over the world? No, we're not trying to take over the world. Okay, then what? If you were, what would it take to do that? Well, you need someone to get access to everyone's personal information using mobile smartphones, get a way to make them give access, and even if they didn't want it, then just take it anyway, or they couldn't have the device, like consent to accept. Then you'd have to get access to their phones, link it to the government, and then you'd have to have, you know, and then if they wanted to oppose it, then you'd have to stop them from opposing it by punishing them for going out, you know, or not doing what you say, and then you need to know where they were all the time, so you'd have to use cameras and, you know, see who went where and who did what by this facial recognition thing, and then we could clamp them all down and then stop them from opposing us. Well, that's how it's done, is it? You know, mechanisms implemented, is how it's done, Tony, right? And So we could get a model here. If you were going to take over the planet, and if you were going to have everyone under this control system, that's how you do it. You need a guy like Tim Cook, and he would be doing things like Tim Cook's doing. I can't get on my parents' computer because I don't know how to use it. It's so simple that it doesn't even have any symbols on it. It's just a blank white screen, right? Hey, I'm Tim. I made your mum's computer into a complete blank white screen with no buttons on. Well, how does it work? Well, it doesn't. Because it's not yours, it's your mum's. You don't have permission to use it. Well, what happens if my mum's not here and it's an emergency? Well, fuck you. I'm Tim Cook. Fuck you. See you fucking later. I could not give a fuck. Well, Tim, but you're meant to be making things simple in life. No, I'm taking over the world. I'm Tim Cook. I'm not making things simple. What do you want me to do? Make becoming a billionaire simple? I'm Tim Cook. If becoming a billionaire was simple and taking over the world, everyone would be doing it. Not just me. Not just me and fucking Mark. I mean, if everyone wanted to set up some goony fucking little website where everyone joins and chats with their friends and spams the motherfuck out of the world with shit adverts, anyone could do it. Hey, I've got a great idea. I really want to spam the fucking world with shit adverts and make them have to watch them. Consent, submit, accept. That's really well make the world happy, And by the way, I'm doing you a great favour by providing you a free website, though, But, there's always a catch, isn't there? Oh, yes, you can't have everything go your way, everything happy in life. Who would design the world and life to be happy all the time? You got to put up with my shit spammy adverts, that drive you fucking insane and waste about, half of, well, I spent quarter of an hour on the internet the other day and, it took about 5 minutes out of it on shit adverts or whatever. This is the thing. If everyone was heartless in the world, then everyone could hey, I really want to take everyone's money off them and really make them miserable with punishing them with listening to these really shit advertisements. They're traumatizing people all day. And encouraging bad health habits like bad eating and things. This is the thing. So anyway, secret societies. This is what it's all about, secret society. So now, if anyone comes across a secret society, right, then be known it's illegal, particularly if it might have members with persons as notorious as Anthony Linton Blair or Nick Clegg, or any other person who has taken some strange, magical, ritualistic, arcane oath that, is verging on the side of, using bone dice and blood and crow feathers and, taking the entrails out of animals and, being blind to the truth and facts or keeping secrets and not telling everyone anything, particularly if it's a secret society, this is the thing, but that's not, but I'm not trying to, I would never insinuate that any of the, societies of this government were secret, although we got the Secret Service. Is the Secret Service a secret society? Now that's a great petition to do. Debate in Parliament. Is the Secret Service a secret society because it's secret? Is it illegal? This is the thing. Oh no, because we know it exists. But we don't know who's on it, and this is the thing. No, the secret society. You can't know that anyone is in it. It exists. This is the thing. So actually, that would be a great question, wouldn't it? When will the secret? I'm going to use the voice command. I don't really want to use it, but I'll use. I sometimes use it if I'm really lazy and I can't be bothered picking the phone up and touching the screen. Although I had to touch it to press the button. When was the Secret Service formed? It's going to tell me now.
July 1865, Washington, D.C., United States.
See that? The 5th of July, I didn't even ask it to speak. The 5th of July, 1865, Washington, D.C. Well, these Luddite things were early. Isn't that interesting? They're talking about, making secret societies illegal in the early 1800s, right? When the Luddites are kicking off. Oh, we're not having any secret societies. They're illegal, right? But guess what? Now we've just invented the United States Secret Service on the 5th of July, 1865. Do what we say, not what we do. Do what we say, not what we do. Do what we say, not what we do, right? So if we say secret societies are illegal, you can't have them, then we go and form one straight away as soon as we made that law up. No one's allowed any secret societies, they're illegal. Right, okay, we're going to form one now on the 5th of July, 1865. Now we form the secret service, right? Yeah, great. It's a military-style campaign. Beyond leaders with children at their disposal. Who's in it? Well, we can't tell you. We don't have to kill you. Well, that's funny because if we knew who was in it, then we would have to prosecute you. Because it's a criminal offence. No, there's the thing with these governments. It's like, okay, we've got this new law, right? No one's allowed to do this, and then we do it straight away after. It's like, whatever, under no circumstances can anyone ever form a secret society. Right, and then the next day, hey, we formed the secret society, right? But, we can, you can't, or whatever. It's just ridiculous, isn't it?